What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and the home and away season for the Geelong Football Club is now over. Round 24 has been run and won, and the Cats played against the Tigers, notching up a 39-point win. Not as much as we all thought it would be, certainly not as much as it was shaping up to be by about half time. But I want to, before we even get into some of the numbers and talking about the stats and the best players and all those sorts of conversations, I want to allay a few concerns I've seen on social media. To me, as someone who was sitting there at the ground, the drop in intensity from Geelong in the second half of the game was incredibly visible. And I know there's people saying, you want to finish the game as well as you can because that's how you begin the next. I don't really buy into this one. They're a professional outfit that knows how to play high stakes, intense football. So I'm not too worried about that. But I looked at this very much as injury prevention. The Cats did not want to compete nearly as hard. They wanted to protect themselves. They wanted to look after themselves and make sure that they were fully fit and ready to go for an assault on a flag in a few weeks. Hopefully, we can pull that off. But they're trying to give themselves every single chance. So please don't be too concerned by what we saw in the second half. Of course, it wasn't great reading. Richmond kicked 7-7 to, I think, our 3-7 in the second half. It's not great when you look at it through that lens. But the intensity just wasn't there. The willingness to commit the body wasn't there. And I don't mean that in the usual negative way if I was to criticize this sort of thing. It's just, as I said, it's injury prevention. So let's get into the final scores here. Geelong getting the job done. 14-19, 103, beating the Tigers 9-10-64. I am getting a little bit concerned by the inaccuracy of a couple players, namely Jeremy Cameron and Tyson Stengel. They've had some good weeks. They've also had some really bad weeks recently. Tyson Stengel in particular, he kicked 2 goals, 4 again today, and just isn't quite firing in front of the goals at the moment. I feel like he's gotten his touch again. He's getting his hands on the ball. We'll talk more about him shortly. But the wayward goal kicking is a bit of a concern for me. Those two would have made it, a big blowout. But as it is, 39-point win to the Cats. The Worm, I think, kind of backs up what I'm talking about. We can see this blitz in the first half, 11 goals, 12 to 2 goals, 3 in the first half. And then in a lot of ways, the script completely flips. As I said, Richmond kicked 7 goals, 7. Geelong kicked 3 goals, 7 in the second half. Geelong were, missing a lot of opportunities as well, which could have potentially really snuffed out the Tigers, even with the intensity drop. But you can see it mostly in that last quarter. Geelong they were done. They'd had enough. They were packing up their bat and ball and going home. We did still win the third quarter by a point. But the fourth, we just didn't really care. They weren't there. And that's fine. A point, was it 2 points? 5 behinds. We won by 2 points in the third quarter there. But yeah, they were done, and no one wants to get injured. Everyone, especially if you're on the fringe, wants to make sure that they're an opportunity to play in the finals. Mitch Nevitt came on the ground in the final quarter and put in some pretty solid football for the very limited game time that he got. I'm overall pretty happy with this game. It would have been a shame. I was there with my wife and my kids, and I was going, "Geez, guys, this looks like it's going to be a 100-point win." Get excited for that. But they put the cue in the rack, and I totally get it. So please, let's not get too concerned by what we've seen. Let's jump to some team stats here, though, which really just reflects the dominance of Richmond in the final quarter. Dominance, the lack of effort from Geelong in the second half in particular. Nothing really to glean from this. If I scroll through all this, there's not a huge amount we can take away. I will take an opportunity to look at clearances when we get there, because certainly that is something that Richmond has kind of had over us. Like, their midfield unit is still, very good at the coalface compared to ours. So I'm curious to see it, and we're about to get there. But free kicks, the Richmond fans were not loving the number of free kicks that we got. And there were some that were a little bit fluffy and light and nothing. And I don't know if they were all there, but there were also some that they were just blind to, clearly. Centre clear, okay. Not too bad considering. I'll take that. That's all right. Not amazing, and especially when you kind of put the cue in the rack in the final quarter. Though I'd say the midfield didn't really give up. I'd say, Tom Atkins was fantastic through the midfield, did not want to concede wherever he could. There was a few players, especially in the guts there, that were, still throwing their all at it. Bailey Smith as well, with I think like 35 or something disposals, was pretty great in that area as well. But, a lot of this stuff, especially turnovers there, reflects the level of experience between the golf inexperience between the two teams here. Geelong really just taking full advantage of the Richmond turnovers. You can see that final quarter. Look at that, 54% possession to 32. Geelong just did not care in that last quarter. And that's fine. I can deal. Not a lot to see here. Contested marks, a lot of these numbers are good, but when you factor in the drop-off, the lack of effort, it's hard to get a clear read on it. Defensive pressure was still really great. I like that. That's really good to see. Max Holmes would have contributed about 15 of those 17, I reckon. And the 1%ers, and this is another stat that kind of highlights that Geelong just wasn't willing to put their body on the line, that it was a bit of circle work to them. But before we go any further, before we get into some individual player numbers, let's take a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's go through some of our individual numbers here. I've brought up the Cats numbers. We've sorted it by disposals. And let's take a bit of a look here at who was kind of the hot hands over the course of the day and who was, putting a pretty great effort. Bailey Smith did an exceptional job, 34 disposals, 7 clearances. And what's been really good to see in the last couple of months is the defensive pressures there. 4 is not a huge number, but it's a pretty solid output, especially considering that we were the dominating team for the majority of this match, even despite the final quarter. 4 tackles there. Tom Atkins, for my mind, best on ground, 27 disposals, 9 tackles, a couple clearances as well, and was pretty unlucky to have a few frees against him for some tackles that just slipped a little bit high on occasions, or potentially didn't even, but they were judged anyway. Put in a pretty great effort. Ryan Myers, solid around the ground again as well. Max Holmes just coasted. He just breezed around the ground yesterday. He did not really want to put too much pressure on, probably highlighted a little bit by the single tackle that he got for the entire game. Wasn't necessarily looking to put his body on the line, but just wheeled and dealed and got the ball in space on a number of occasions and was able to run and bounce 2, 3, 4 times before delivering. It was great to see. And hopefully, although it feels far less likely, hopefully he's able to find freedom like that during the finals as well. And he can just get on some long runs, deliver the ball 50 meters and give our forwards every chance of piling on the scores. Tom Stewart continuing to look really, really solid in defense. He is very, very close to back to his best. Shout out to all the Richmond supporters who were booing him over the course of the day. Guys, it's years and years old. He paid his price. And none of your blokes are perfect either. So how about you stick it up your ass? But Tom Stewart, playing some really, really good football, really solid in defense, as were several other defenders as well. And we'll talk about a couple of those shortly, who I've been a little bit critical of lately, but are starting to put together some pretty good football. Jeremy Cameron, as I mentioned, a little bit wayward in front of goal, but he's getting his hands on the ball plenty. 4 goals, 4 for him. I think the 100 is now well and truly washed, but it's fine. This is a forward who's still in some very, very good touch, and I look forward to what he can bring for the Cats going into the finals. He even had 2 clearances around the grounds for the day. Sean Manor building on some really good form, electric at points with 18 disposals. Ollie Dempsey looking pretty sharp as well. He'd been a little bit off the ball for a period during the middle of the season, but seems to be kind of finding his form again. And that's really, really reassuring to see. Paddy Dangerfield looking strong through the contest, 2 goals, 1. Tyson Stengel, I mentioned him before, 2 goals, 4. His touch is good. He's getting his hands on the ball. He's been really clean around the contest. He's just missing his shots at the moment. I'm sure with 2 weeks up his sleeve to get a little bit of goal kicking practice, a bit of contested goal kicking practice, I'm sure he'll find his touch again. And shout out to the Richmond supporters in the crowd who were having a crack at him on the verge of 3/4 time. You're real brave, real brave. Zach Guthrie, wheeling off half back, looked pretty strong as well. Jed Buse with his first game back in quite some time. I hope he stays. I don't know if it'll happen, but I hope he stays. He 15 disposals, a few clearances as well. Was looking really, really good around the ground all day. Competed really hard. You could see that with him, he knew that he was right on the brink here, and wanted to retain his spot. Hopefully that effort helps him to retain that spot. But of course, we've got Big Scratch and Neil to come back in this week, and that causes the pieces to shuffle a little bit. I don't know what that means for him, but hopefully he's still on the list as far as I'm concerned. Oisin Mullen looks solid, does not want to kick a goal, just clearly does not want to kick his first AFL goal unless he's kicking it from 5-10 metres out at this point. Jack Martin, 1 goal, 1, looking pretty solid as well. Jack Bowes, prominent early, faded late, but, competed really hard over the course of the day, which is good to see. Connor O'Sullivan, a little bit wobbly at stages, but was quite clean. Sam De Koning is the one that I was alluding to before, who's really starting to find some touch. Competed really hard. Did lose a couple against Tom Lynch, but Tom Lynch is, a fantastic forward, right past his prime, but still a huge-bodied key forward. And, got outpointed once or twice, but also did a lot of outpointing as well. I think this is a Sam De Koning who's really starting to find his way back into some form. We're not talking 2022 form yet, but he's in a really good place right now, and that's exactly what we want going into the final series. I don't see him being dropped as he was last year. Lawson Humphreys has been out of form for quite some time now. I just feel like just his positioning more than anything else. His disposal's still fine, but he's just positioning himself in some awkward spots. He's finding himself kind of caught in the contest a bit more than we'd perhaps like, but he'll get there. This is a running halfback for the next 10 to almost 15 years at this point. I firmly believe in what Lawson can provide, and I think he's still going to be a hugely valuable asset going into the finals. But because of this lack of form, he does find himself at risk with Jed Buse returning. Reece Stanley was pretty solid around the ruck and kicked a fantastic snapshot goal in the first quarter, going head-to-head with Big Nank. Mark Blitzarv's pretty solid as well. Bit more the traditional Mark Blitzarv's, use him wherever sort of role, so he didn't have his hands on the ball as much as we've seen recently. Brad Close, effective link man with some handy taps, but not his best game, and Mitch Nevitt came on really, really late. But this is a Geelong team that, outside of the fact that Shannon Neal is out, and someone will obviously have to make way for him, is pretty much content complete. I am really happy with what pretty much this whole team is delivering. Please don't make much of the final quarter there and the lack of intensity, the lack of pressure, the lack of scores from Geelong in the last quarter in particular. They put the cue in the rack and did not want to get hurt. But I'm seeing a Geelong team here who looks like they are ready to go. Now, who we play? I'm recording this, of course, before the Sunday games. Who they play between Brisbane, Collingwood or Hawthorn remains to be seen. If Hawthorn wins by a small amount, like a really small amount, single digits, it will be the Pies. If Brisbane win, it'll be Brisbane. If Hawthorn win by, I think it's about 15 points or more, it'll be the Hawks. So we're still waiting to find out who that opponent will be, but it'll be at the MCG. So I look forward to hopefully seeing you there in the first week of the finals. Cats fans, let me know what you think of this video. And of course, the Geelong v Richmond game, we won by 39 points in a canter. Keen to hear your thoughts about what that game represented and also our chances in the finals. If you like this video, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube, and share this video with your friends and family. Get more word out there about the Hoops Crew and all the content we are creating. You'll find us on Patreon, patreon.com/The Hoops Crew. There's early access, extended, and exclusive content there, ready and waiting for you. You just need to subscribe for $5 a month to check it all out. But there's also a 7-day free trial to see if it's for you. Try before you buy. You'll find me on socials at Paul James Games. That's at Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. The Hoops Crew is at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong, everyone. Again, I look forward to seeing you round 1 in the finals, presumably a night game, but we'll wait and see. Thanks a lot for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.